Good morning, good evening, wherever in the world you're watching from. It's Business Morning live on Channels Television. I'm Ladi Williams. Great to have you join us. First off, let's take a look at what's making the headlines. You see, Nigeria's central bank has directed banks in the country to be vigilant regarding transactions related to the Benin Republic, as reports suggest the West African country is increasingly becoming a drug trafficking transit and consumption hub. The circular issued the CBN directed banks to implement additional measures on customers and business relationships linked to Benin Republic. These include reclassification of related customers and transactions as high risk, as well as conduct of enhanced due diligence procedures. Financial market regulator also asked Nigerian banks to strengthen its Know Your Customer, that's a KYC, and customer due diligence CDD policies as mandated by regulation. And motivation and encouragement are great treasures in the workplace, and this is part of the submissions of the chairman of Choice International Group, Chief Diana Chan, at the maiden edition of the company's annual conference in Lagos. She also charged the management staff to help build subordinates around them. Do take a listen.
This is the annual conference of Choice International Group, parent company of CIG Motors Limited, Gree Air Conditioner and Lontor. Staff and top management of the company are gathered at this first of its kind event. This is not just a strategy meeting for the group, but one designed to bring star staff to share their experiences of climbing to the top.
It's also stemming from my willingness to take up challenging roles within the organization, filling gaps for other colleagues that are not available presently. I was nominated and I received an award for excellence of High Flyer in the year 2021, both locally and internationally.
Standard is weekly report, mid-month report, monthly report, half-year report, quarterly report, yearly report. One of the things that Choice International Group will do for you is to first of all make you a newer version of yourself. The first award I received was after 6 months of joining the company as Star of Change.
While fellow staff may borrow some wisdom from the journey of their colleagues, the chairman, chief executive officer of Choice International Group, Diana Chen, shares tips on career advancement.
As I say, if anybody who are able to motivate you and give the strength in your life, please take it as a treasure. So I want all the managers, all the supervisors, you should have the capability to build the strength of the people who work around you.
And why is this staff seminar necessary at this time?
People are motivated and inspired to lead differently when they realize that the product of all their efforts has been seen by all. So I think it was a decision of the company to celebrate people who have exemplified excellence and people who have been able to carry the brand, fortuitously.
It's no secret that Choice International Group is rising to be one of the leading international companies in Nigeria, spearheading the entry of world-class Chinese brands into the Nigerian consumer market while helping its staff up the game.
And more business news now. The Nigerian Communications Commission says the winners of the license for the 5G spectrum in Nigeria, MTN and Mafab Communications, are expected to begin the rollout of 5G services in August this year, as the NCC issues final letters to both companies. According to the Commission, the deployment of 5G network, which will provide a lot of benefits and opportunities that will accelerate growth and smart living in the country. That's that the technology is also expected to bring substantial network improvements, including high connection speed, mobility, and capacity. And now to our first conversation. While the Nigerian telecom sector generated the lowest amount of capital investment in 2021 in almost 10 years, it also represents a consistent decline since 2020. To discuss this and other issues in the sector, we have Jibola Olude, Executive Secretary ATCON, join us on the program. That's Association of Telecom Companies of Nigeria. Good morning. Great to have you on the program.
Good morning. Thank you.
Great to have you join us. Well, recently we've seen a rise, in cost of energy, especially with, diesel in Nigeria. Do you think this would, obviously this would impact, telecom services in the country? We've seen, other sectors impacted, but should we be expecting, increase in tariffs at this point?
Yes. Thank you very much. The price of diesel is central to the telecommunications sector, and you will agree with me that there has been a general increase in the price of diesel, and these have direct effects on the cost of telephone. For instance, you will agree with me that power in Nigeria is not reliable, is unstable, so we depend more on diesel to be able to power all our base stations across the country. So soonest we should expect an upward review, in the price of telecommunication service in Nigeria.
Yeah, we did see that news that broke yesterday about one of the groups in the telecom industry talking about a proposal to actually hike tariffs. But by how much do you think these tariffs could go up for?
Okay, based on the proposal that I saw or that I read yesterday, is actually 40%, and you will agree with me that it's long overdue. It has been long that telecommunication sector review their tariff rates in Nigeria, and a whole lot of things have happened. For instance, when you look at the right of way, which is supposed to be 145 naira per linear meter, some states charge as much as 1,002, and some states charge 800 naira. And you will agree with me that telecommunication sector has become a service that both the rich and the poor want to consume. But the environment is not that enabling because of the issue of right of way, monetization, foreign estate, vandalization of our telecom infrastructure. So it is long overdue, and I think government should listen to them.
Right, quite interesting, because this has been described as the year of the squeeze. We've seen household incomes, squeezed at this point, and this is going to be more, if this actually happens. But looking at the recent report, investment in Nigeria's telecom sector has, recorded a consistent decline in 10 years. What do you think is stoking this?
Okay, many things are responsible for the decrease you see, in capital importation to the sector, or what we call FDI. One of them is an investor wants to put his money, in a sector that is stable. You will agree with me that the policy around, the telecom sector, is not favorable to the sector in terms of federal government asking state government to charge 145 naira per linear meter, and some states refused, to implement that. Instead, they implement what they feel the price should be. That's one of the reasons why people don't want to put their money in the sector. For instance, the fund that's supposed to go into improving, the sector, is being, a large chunk of it is being used to pay right of way. So when you look at all these factors, investors are not, really happy, to put their money into the sector again. And we just have to work towards enabling the environment so that more capital importation can come to the sector.
But do you see this trend actually continuing at this point? Because it's quite interesting, because there's a lot of demand, for telecom services in the country, and consumption levels of data, internet, financial transactions are increasingly mounting, pressure on telecom infrastructure. So that should, bring some investment, but do you think the infrastructure present, at this point is sustainable to match the demand?
Really, with the new broadband target, which is 70%, we have a lot of infrastructure deficit, in the sector. And normally, we should be able to attract more money. But, when you consider issues like right-of-way multiplication, vandalization of telecom equipment, the investor will think twice before, he put his money in that sector. So what I would say is that, and telecom has become inelastic demand, especially when we had COVID. Everybody depend on telecommunication infrastructure to communicate, to do business. And majority of state governments are not looking at that side, right? And we have many times educate them on the need to see telecom as a sector that can jumpstart, right, development in their state. But instead of allowing telecommunication, to thrive in their various states, they keep piling costs, upon the sector. So I would say that the level of infrastructure we have in Nigeria is not adequate. We need more, and for us to have more, the state governments need to buy into telecommunication initiative and development.
Right, and looking at the current infrastructure, we know security is another issue, securing most of these telecom infrastructure. But what conversations are being had regarding securing the present infrastructure available?
Okay, we've had a number of conversations with government in respect of securing a telecom infrastructure. As we speak, we have a bill which is to treat telecom infrastructure as a critical national infrastructure. But up to today, that has not been done. Right? That has not been done. So we have to provide security for the base station, right, by ourselves. And when you can put all these costs together, you will agree with me that it will necessitate, hike in the price of a telecom tariff in Nigeria.
Right, and we're already seeing those proposals flying around. But the 5G spectrum in Nigeria, I know those two big companies got the license, and they're expected to on board, later this year. But what can we expect? What kind of impact can we expect, with this once the 5G hits the market later this year?
Okay, 5G is really going to impact Nigeria positively, because we have a lot of things attached to technology when you talk about Internet of Things and what have you. So MAFAB and MTN won the license, and they are expected to roll out service from August, and I know that they are doing their housekeeping in order to meet the time for rollout in August.
Right, and there's always been this talk and debate, about 5G, if it's good or not good. But for you, is it a welcome idea to have the 5G deployed?
First and foremost, 5G is not harmful. 5G is going to improve our well-being in Nigeria. Nigeria is not the first country where 5G will be deployed. And I can tell you that 5G is really going to, promote our well-being.
Right, and we've been talking about investment, in the telecom sector. Going forward, do you see, some opportunities, coming up? What kind of opportunities are coming up, at this point, in the telecoms sector that would bring or actually attract, investors?
Okay, well, I mean, for further investment to come into the sector, some of the bottlenecks need to be removed. Part of the bottleneck that needs to be removed is right of way. multiple taxation, when you have multiplicity of agencies trying to control the sector that is on exclusive list of the federal government. So we just have to remove all this bottleneck, and these are main man challenges which I think can be removed.
And well, I know other companies, are coming up, at this point, and trying to bring solutions to, try and take advantage of the demand we have, in this sector. What interesting innovations do you see coming up in the sector?
Okay, part of the innovation that will come up in the sector will be enabled by IoT, Internet of Things, whereby your key, right? I mean, you can actually control your car right inside of your room, whereby when you are coming in, you don't need security to open your door for you. That can be done via technology. So a lot of opportunities are around, and for us to have Internet of Things, right, we need 5G to be in place.
Right, and well, it's still, early times, for this sector, and there's a lot, to on board. There's perhaps other rural areas that, need to be catered to. What plans are there, to, increase the penetration, the internet penetration in the country?
Okay. For your information, NCC have licensed some infracos to go to rural area to provide internet for them. And I know that NCC is doing a lot to ensure that rural telephony is a reality in Nigeria.
Quite interesting. And I want to get your quick outlook, for this sector. It's a very important sector to any economy. How do you see Nigerian sector in the, say, next 5 years?
Okay, what I can tell you is that the state government have a role to play in improving broadband penetration in their various states. If the issue of right of way is removed, I'm telling you that we will experience development both in the urban and in the rural area. Right of way is a big issue, and my prayer is that right of way will become a thing of the past.
Right. Well, we'll keep tracking.
If state government can buy into, if state government can buy into federal government plan, to improve broadband penetration.
Right. Well, there's still so much demand in that sector, and a lot of services still need to come up, and innovations to come up in that sector to, help increase penetration in the country. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on the program, Mr. Ajibola Olude, Executive Secretary at ATCON. It was great having you on the program this morning.
Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.
All right. So after the break, Commodities Market Update is next. Do stay with us. This is Business Morning. Welcome back. Now for Commodities Market Update. We saw oil prices extended gains today. Brent crude futures had climbed 60 cents to $110.74 a barrel in early trade, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures rose 40 cents to $108.21 a barrel. Well, joining us now is Adesola Sumoni, analyst, financial derivatives company. Great to have you on the program. Good morning.
Good morning, Ladi. Thank you for having me on the show today.
Yeah, so I've seen oil prices jump about 3% as EU is considering an embargo on Russian oil. That conversation has been on, for a while now, and it's coming at a time where OPEC Plus is meeting to decide, on production quotas. How do you see all of these, affecting developments in the oil market?
Thank you for that question, Ladi. Already, the oil market is in a tight situation. Like you mentioned, OPEC Plus has consistently missed, for instance, their production target since, I think, October last year up until March this year, apart from February. And for last month, they missed their production target by around 40,000 barrels per day. In addition to missing their production target, Libya, which is also a part of OPEC, they've declared a force majeure on 2 of their major oil export terminals, which took around 500,000 barrels offline from the oil market. So all of this is the context, is the background, right? And now that the EU is planning to, essentially place an embargo on Russia's exports, would further tighten the market. Russia exports, I think, around 7 million barrels of oil per day globally, and around half of that, 3.5 million of that, goes to EU. So I think this Russian, the planned embargo on Russia over the next 6 months on Russia's exports is going to further tighten the oil market, and it would make price remain elevated. On the demand side, also, there are concerns that the rise in coronavirus cases in China and the attendant lockdowns would reduce oil demand growth, particularly because China is one of the largest importers of oil. But it seems as if on the supply side, the tightness on the supply side is outweighing the expected or the concerns about demand, and that's why we see prices remain elevated, and they're likely to remain so even to the near term.
Right, and we're seeing natural gas prices also surge about 9%, and obviously we know how reliant Europe is on Russian gas at this point. But you're looking at that market now and the price of gas. What do you think is stoking this recent rise here, about 9%, highest level since 2008?
Yeah, thank you again. I think what's happening right now is, again, that market is also very, very tight at the moment. We are seeing on the driven again by the Russia-Ukraine crisis. Russia exports, I think, accounts for around 40% of oil exports to Europe. So there's a huge reliance, and this proposed ban by the EU also extends to the gas exports. So what we are seeing is a lot of countries are trying to switch suppliers from buying Russian gas to other suppliers, and one of the main rivals or one of the main substitutes is the United States. So we are seeing huge demand for gas in the United States. Interestingly, this is coming at a time where United States natural gas production is low, is down, and their gas stockpiles is down around 21% year on year. Also, this is coming at a time where we are moving closer to the warmer season, and there's going to be high demand for air conditioning, which also is improving demand for natural gas. So all of these, I think, are contributing to why we see natural gas reach record highs of the record we've seen.
Right, and we're seeing that Europe does need all that heat, coming into the cooler seasons. But in a recent report, the World Bank estimates that poor Nigerians will hit about 95.1 million 2022. Talk us through the main highlights of this bleak report.
Okay, so I think this was a recent report just providing new evidence, or the latest evidence on the poverty situation in Nigeria. And they outlined, I think, a number of micro and macro factors that contributed to that. On the macro side, one, we have since 2015 that real GDP growth has lagged population growth. Population growth is estimated around 3.6% yearly. And since 2015, since the first oil price shock in recent times, we've seen real GDP growth lag that, and which makes it difficult to improve poverty, to improve the poverty situation, or to engender inclusive growth. So that's the fact that population growth grows faster than real GDP. It kind of depresses the standard of living. So that's one of the macro factors. On the other hand, some macro policies that were implemented over the past 5 years, for instance, the exchange rate regime, we have a multiple exchange rates regime. In addition to that, we have some trade policies which were I think, detrimental to inclusive growth, and which did not create a positive environment for poverty reduction. For instance, we had the border closure, I think, in 2019. In addition to that, we have low revenue mobilization, which essentially reduces or affects the ability of the federal government to expand the social protection schemes. I think that there are some measures now to improve revenue mobilization. If you look at the revenue, the tax to like the internally generated revenue to FAC ratio, you see that for many states in Nigeria, more than 70–80% of their revenues come from the federal, from FAC, with very, very little internally generated revenue. So those are the factors on the macro side. On the micro side, we have some factors such as climate factors. And this is particularly important because many Nigerians, a significant portion, I don't remember the percentage now, many of them are dependent on their smallholder farmers, and they depend on rain-fed agriculture. They're also small business owners. So with the issue with climate change, climate issues with the flooding and drought, that sort of disrupted their livelihoods and also contributed to poverty. In addition to that, we have the conflict, the issue with Boko Haram, the issue with what's it called? The herdsmen and the herdsmen and the farmers. Those kind of disrupted markets, they disrupted livelihoods, and also contributed to poverty.
Right,
now,
so much.
Bring in the pandemic.
Right, the pandemic, right. And after a pandemic, then it will get a war that's stoking supply disruptions at this point. But exactly. Another one is the potash. Now, potash, and that's, I think Russia is a big producer of potash, and now we're seeing Nigeria looking for another source, for getting potash, and now they're looking to Canada for emergency. How's this going to impact Nigeria at this point?
I think at the moment, I would say that like every other commodity, many countries are switching suppliers from Russia, just as a form of punishment, some form of economic sanctions on Russia. And for Nigeria, I think that the switch is not going to be sudden. It's going to be phased. It's going to be over time. And I think we'll just see how that plays out. Canada is also a big producer of potash. I will see how that plays out on how they switch over time to Canada.
Yeah, it's all about switching suppliers at this point, if you have anything to do with Russia. But yesterday, the U.S. Fed raised rates by about 50 basis points further, but it's less aggressive than expected. Some are expecting 75 basis points, and I saw the markets react favorably to that. We saw the Nasdaq go up yesterday about 3%, saw the S&P 500, and also Bitcoin reacted good to that. But how would all of this impact emerging economies like Nigeria at this point? 50 basis points is still a hike.
I mean, it's not as aggressive as we hope, and we hope not to. So it's not an aggressive spike, right? But it is kind of tightening markets globally. We are seeing tighter conditions, particularly because not only the US is increasing their benchmark interest rate, the UK also in their meeting, I think this month, expected to increase benchmark interest rates. The ECB, the European Central Bank, also is expected to increase their benchmark interest. So globally, we are seeing a move towards, a more contractionary monetary policy stance, which is tightening financial conditions, and that has a range of implications for emerging market economies. For one, it might lead to some capital outflows from emerging market economies, which will pressure the external reserves and the exchange rate. Two, it might also affect, the cost of debt, because of the financial conditions globally are tightening. So the cost of debt service would also increase quite sharply for many of these countries. And this is particularly important for emerging market economies, particularly African economies, because they already have high debt and high debt to revenue ratios. Right.
And, obviously there are arguments that raising rates, at this point is not sufficient to fight a supply side, supply disruption inflation at this point, but what do you think?
I mean, we know that some of the drivers of the inflation right now are not only they're not only driven by monetary factors. We also have like trade disruption, supply side disruption, and this I think would evolve. Would evolve over time. For instance, one of the key drivers is oil prices, right? And oil prices are likely to remain elevated in the medium to long term, particularly given the situation in Russia. So monetary factors can help, but would not go all the way in curbing inflation that is driven by these other factors.
Yeah, so much for central bankers, to do at this point. It's all about fighting inflation. Hopefully, the central bankers can win, against inflation. But, talk us through, key developments in the global commodities market.
So for the global commodities market, all the commodities we track are trending upwards, both wheat, corn, cocoa, and sugar. For wheat and corn, I think one of the factors, apart from the fact that the Ukraine-Russia crisis is affecting the supply of wheat and corn, which Ukraine and Russia are some of the largest producers, we are seeing delays in planting season in the US, which is affecting the export of wheat and corn. For cocoa, we are seeing weather-related issues affect the production of cocoa from Ivory Coast, which is one of the largest, if not the largest producer globally, and that is pushing prices upwards. For sugar, also, we are seeing some harvest delays in Brazil, which is also kind of raising some concerns about supply, and that is also leading price to trend upwards. And we expect that, I think these factors will persist, I think, in the near term.
Right, that's the commodity super cycle at this point. Thank you so much, Desola Simoni. It was great to have you on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we'll take a moment now. All right, now for the equities market, we have Anete standing by right there. Anete started with a positive outlook. Now, the all-share index hitting the 50K level. And this morning, I called you the 50K man because you actually predicted this. How's it looking?
Good morning, Laddie. You got that right. I believe a couple of months ago, early this year, sometime around January or so, when the market was rising, we both had that discussion. We said, yes, this market may hit the 50K level. And just in the start of May's trading, it just opened the day, closing the day, was slightly above the 50,000 level. And of course, not just that, the market's capitalization crossed, for the very first time, hit the 27 trillion naira mark. That shows you that Nigeria's stock market really is going back to the glory days about 14 years ago. But before we get to that market, let's start first with the fixed income market. So at the start of May's trading, the fixed income market, it was not too much of activity there. The very sentiment is what dominated the market. Take a look at the board here. What we have, the number of deals is about 15 there. That was the total number of deals carried out on the bond segment there. The highest was on the 27th of April 2023 paper. And this, average yield there expanded by 8 basis points to 11.11% across the benchmark curve. Average yield expanded at the short, mid, and long segments as investors sold off the March 2027, February 2028, and April 2037 bonds. So that's for that market. When you move over to the Treasury bills market, you can see there the activity was just on the 27th of April 2023 paper, which had about 5 deals, and that value was about 2.90 billion naira. And that, of course, the fixed income market was quiet. The average yield there stayed flat at 3.7%. Now, when you move over to the open market operations, what you call the OMO, the highest concentration was on the 13th of September 2022 paper. Total number of deals carried out there was the value was 3.25 billion naira. And then, of course, that it shows you the average yield there wasn't changed at 4.2%. For the CBN special bills, what we had there, the activity there was mostly on the 30th of May 2022 paper. which had 28 deals. Total number of deals carried out on that space, that segment of the fixed income market, was just 32 at 54 billion naira. Now, we will be having our fixed income analyst, Chioma Udu, to talk to us about that. If we have her, maybe she could talk to us via Zoom. But she's not there. I think we can move over. Okay, all right. So we have Chioma Udu to tell us more about the fixed income market on the first trading day of May. Thank you for joining us, Chioma.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Now, you resumed to bearish sentiments at the fixed income market, and which comes amidst inflows of FAC allocations. Last week, the FAC was there was a FAC announcement. So, how is the market turning out as we speak?
You're right. There's some bearish sentiments across the curve. This is because of the sentiment that there's going to be gradual rally in interest rates. Inflation is at about 15.92, and we expect that this trend is going to continue. We don't see a lot of liquidity in the system this month. Last month, liquidity was average of about 280 billion, but we don't see that repeating itself this month. So as a result of that, and with the inflation we've seen investors try to push up rates and then sell in the market because they expect that rates are going to trend up.
Okay, so now I don't know what your view is, but some analysts are expecting that demand for treasury bills will improve this week as system liquidity becomes buoyant, and they're also envisaging a decline in the average yield on bonds. That's for treasury bills. Also for the bonds yield, they expect an uptick. So what's your view on that?
Well, because of the FAC inflow we received closing early this month, which is about 395 billion, of course, investors will look for places to earn return on this liquidity that have come into the system. So we expect that at the next auction next week, that there's going to be more interest in that space. And we expect that investors will try and place that money for assets available at the auction. I don't think that rates are going to trend down. I think in the 1 year, which is currently at 4.79, may remain constant, or we'll see a gradual uptick because the general sentiment we have in the market is that rates and the yield curve will gradually trend up. If you look at the bond space, we saw some bearish sentiment at the long end of the curve. The last auction, the 2042 was about 12.9%, but now it's touching 13%. So yes, the sentiment still remains that we're going to see gradual rally in rates. But for the next auction, you're right, we're going to see a lot of demand because of the FAC liquidity we have in the system.
All right, so thank you for that insight, Chioma, and then we will keep our eyes on the market. That was Chioma Udu, fixed income dealer at GT Bank. So now, over to that market I was talking about earlier, 50,126.41. That's points. That's what the index closed at the at midweek session, 0.98%, which translates to about 260 billion naira in value, and this is the highest, 27.023 trillion naira. That's what the market cap has hit for the very first time in the history of Nigeria's stock exchange. So now that market is really getting more vibrant, especially when you take a look at the volume of transactions. But in contrast to what we had on Friday, the last trading day of February, we had more than 1 billion units of shares traded. But in the start of the week, yesterday, the volume was down. The volume was down by 89.55% here. Value was down by 80.19%, but the deals was up by 13.69%. But of course, that shows you that this market, yes, it is still going up. Then, of course, when we look at the sectoral performance, it's quite a mixed picture there. But the gain that you saw there was lifted by the industrial goods and the consumer goods components, particularly the shares of Bua Cement, which went up by about 8%. So that's what really caused the market to rally. Of course, investors took time out to take profit on some of these shares for that market. So for now, we will be expecting that the market will continue to maintain that uptrend, but caution is what they're still advising on the part of investors.
Caution, but quite an interesting move in that market. And yet, well, 7,000 deals, quite incredible. We'll see how that continues, in the month of May. incredible April it had in that market. Let's see how May plays out. Thank you so much, Anete. Well, I will head to London after the break. Do stay with us. This is Business Morning. Welcome back. Still watching Business Morning. Let's head on to the UK now. We have Juliana right there. Great to have you, Juliana. Good morning. Well, another oil giant declaring bumper profit. This time it's Shell. Nearly threefold profit this time. How's it looking over there?
Yes, I'm sure, Laddie, you won't be surprised that Shell, one of the biggest risers on the UK blue chip index today, up 2.36%. And it's because, as you said, just 48 hours after their rival BP reported a huge, exceptional, as it's been calling, trading update for the first quarter of the year. Shell have done exactly the same thing, although, of course, it's pretty important to differentiate between revenue and profit. Profit has actually fallen from 11 billion to about $7 billion, but revenue has increased threefold, as you said, to over $9 billion, way above the market consensus of, I believe, between 7 and 8 billion, and it trumps what they reported in the fourth quarter of last year. Of course, it goes without saying that this is all about the war in Ukraine. We know that at one point a barrel of Brent crude, which is the benchmark, was trading above $100 a barrel, and Shell, BP, all of the oil majors, Chevron, ExxonMobil, they also reported their earnings last week. They've all benefited from this, and now it does really raise the question again in this country about a windfall tax. Can't go into too much of that because we do have election day today. Thousands of councillors are going to be elected across England, but it is a major topic of discussion, and I'm sure that will be reflected in tomorrow's results, which we'll of course be discussing extensively on the channel. But yes, another payday for investors that have been waiting for a couple of years to finally get their dividends from these oil majors, and it looks like it's going to be a handsome takeaway.
Right, and the windfall tax will be hammered on even more with this revenue and profit rise. But now the U.S. Fed raised rates, yesterday, but not as aggressive. It's just a 0.50 basis points increase. And now the Bank of England is expected to raise rates. But are we expecting a more aggressive rate hike from the BOE, or maybe just follow what the U.S. did?
Well, it depends. So at about 12 local time, we are expecting the Bank of England Monetary Policy Committee to set interest rates. We're all expecting it to be higher, probably 0.25%, which would bring interest rates up to 1%, although there are some suggestions that perhaps it should go much higher and it should be increased by 0.5%. We've had four consecutive increases of interest rates since the beginning of the year. In December, interest rates in this country were at a historic low of 0.1%. It just shows you what can happen within a space of a few months. Of course, this is all really about supply chain disruptions, the war in Ukraine. Also, what the world seems to have forgotten is that, the world's second largest economy is currently under a pretty aggressive lockdown. And because they are the manufacturing hub, this is having significant impact on the costs of goods. So, yes, we are expecting an interest rate hike. We saw it last night. I think it's fair to say that central bank governors can no longer allow inflation to spiral out of control. In the US, 4-decade high, 3-decade high here in the UK. Data that has been released earlier this week is proving that it is starting to bite. We had data from the British Retail Consortium showing that prices are rising at record highs, and customers are starting to feel the pinch. One of the ways they can resolve this, of course, is to raise the interest rate, but that is not going to help everybody. If you've got a mortgage, it starts going up and down, as well as all of the other credit payments that people have to pay in this country. So it's certainly not a win-win. It does feel like a lose-lose. And again, it just kind of highlights the cost of living squeeze that's impacting not just the UK, but most corners of the world.
So much for the central bankers to deal with at this point. All right, Juliana, thank you so much. We'll get more updates from you at 1:30 on Business Incorporated. Thank you so much. All right, now let's take a look at other markets. We see the market cap on see Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies there. Market cap is about 1.80 trillion. That's up about 4.00% this morning. We saw the Nasdaq and the S&P 500 rise yesterday with the Fed actually raising rates not as aggressive as expected, and we saw the Bitcoin market actually react to that, jumping about 5%. This morning, we see Bitcoin at $39,500. It's up 3.05%. It did get to about 40K last night. Volume traded 37.43 billion, and price of Ethereum $2,929. That's up about 4.08%. There was a break above the bearish trend line for Ethereum, but we're seeing it's reaching for that $3,000 level at this point. Volume traded $18.43 billion. All right, let's bring in Bjorn Martins now, CEO, Passive Income Token. There's a lot of talk in the market about a crypto bear market, a winter, crypto winter. Great to have you, Bjorn. I'm sure you've experienced a crypto winter before, and it's not the cutest, it's not the cutest thing for traders, you know, at this point. And now let's talk about another crypto winter coming, even though we had a relief rally yesterday night, and traders are optimistic that this might actually continue in May. But if a crypto winter actually comes, Bjorn, what should traders be doing?
Yeah, the crypto winter is a typical thing of the cycle, of course. As we've seen 2 days ago, we came exactly on the mark 2 years away from the halving of Bitcoin. So we're exactly in the middle of the cycle. If you look back in the past, these times were always the moments that Bitcoin and all other cryptocurrencies were in a bear sense and everything was down. Honestly, if you didn't make any changes or already for the bear market, you're a little bit late. As I see it as at the moment a chance to stack up again on your cryptos, see which ones really lost a lot of value, like 80 to 85%. Tokens like X Infinity, Synthetic Network, Maker, Decentraland, they all went down about 80 to 85%. But they have huge use cases, utility ways. So as soon as the market picks up again, we get closer to this next halving of Bitcoin within over 2 years, that these prices were amazing to have. If you look back at the fall of 2018, it was super low and people didn't dare to buy, but it's really the moment to make a change in your portfolio.
Quite interesting. You say buy when the market is fearful and sell when the market is greedy, but now some traders say we don't have liquidity to buy the dip. And when you have that kind of issue, you start to just maybe hold and hope you gain back those losses. But as a developer, a CEO executive there in the crypto space, what would developers, and crypto CEOs be doing, at that point if a crypto winter comes?
I'm really happy with this question. I really like you asking this, as this really will distinguish all the hype tokens, all the tokens that don't really have value, that are really made to pump up by people bringing money in. And when you have tokens where a real business is behind, they're also running business, they're making revenue, they're making profits, etc. But they don't not just are they need to live off the tokens' value, of the tax system, of liquidating, etc. As after a while, it's not possible anymore. And then if you have really constructed a proper business, really brought utility to your token, it's kind of a good thing for us as developers, as it will extinguish us from basically all the bad things that are out there.
I guess the winter market actually acts like a kind of cleansing, for all the pump and dump tokens. All right, Bjorn, always great to talk to you, Bjorn. Thank you so much for coming on the program. Bjorn Martins there, CEO Passive Income Token. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. All right, now let's look at the top alts by market cap. We see BNB there about $400. It's up 3.23%. It's mostly green in the market at this point, with Cardano there up 10%, jumping there. It's 86 cents, still below $1 though. And then we see eCash up 7.10%. XRP also trying to move at this point, is up about 5.59%. I would see the top 5 gainers. We see Zilliqa there starting another run up 39% this morning at 9 cents. It did get as high as over 20 cents, but had a massive pullback with volatility we saw with Bitcoin there. And top five losers, we see Steppen leading that count is down about 1.58%. And mostly stable coins down, showing that traders are moving away from stable coins and trying to make some profit in the market. All right, Fear Greed Index stands at 27 points. It was extreme fear day before yesterday, but now we're at fear, showing sentiment is easing in the market at this point. All right, thank you so much for watching. That's the crypto. That's it for the markets at this point. And don't forget to join us at 1:30 for more updates in the world of business. That's on Business Incorporated. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Ladi Williams. Bye for now.